clarion, Isobel said, staring up at the house in front of her. I always thought she'd leave it to my mother.
These were Vivien's instructions, the lawyer replied in clipped tones. She was very specific.
He paused for a moment.
Has your mother said something? He asked, fidgeting with concern.
It was the most animated Isobel had seen her grandmother's lawyer all morning. He was scratching his ear and squinting in the bright summer sunshine. She smiled. Don't worry, she said. Mum doesn't want the house. Isobel wondered if her mother, Gina, wanted anything that reminded her of Vivien or Silverton Bay. Gina and Vivien had never seen eye to eye, and Isobel had never really understood the reasons why. Knowing the stubbornness of both her mother and grandmother, it was probably something petty that had got lost in the murkiness of the passing years.
I see,
Mr. Bretcher said, shifting from one foot to the other, probably embarrassed by the flaws of other people's families.
Well, perhaps it's time to give you the keys.
He held them out to her, explaining which key was for which lock. As she took them from him, she noticed that her hands were shaking. Mr. Bretcher stayed at the bottom of the steps as Isobel walked up to the front door, looking up once again at the 3-story late Victorian house that she couldn't quite believe was now hers. She put the correct key in the lock and turned it until it clicked. The click brought back memories of when she used to live here, the last time she'd had her own front door key. She swallowed as the door swung open.
I'll be on my way,
Mr. Bretcher said, as he backed down the garden path towards his car, which was parked behind Isobel's battered Citroën on the road in front of the house. Is there anything else I need to know? Isobel asked. She suddenly didn't want to be left alone with this huge 5-bedroomed house. It felt like too much of a responsibility.
There's still some paperwork to go through,
he said. He seemed small and far away at the bottom of the steps, and Isobel started to walk towards him again, away from the house.
Some things I need you to sign, but I'll call you about those.
Okay, Isobel said, as Mr. Bretcher opened the garden gate and stepped through. As he closed the gate behind him, he turned around, leaning slightly on the wrought iron.
Don't forget Vivien's wishes, he said quietly. I don't know why, but they were very important to her.
I won't, Isobel said, as the lawyer unlocked his Rover. Isobel hadn't really thought about what would happen to the house at all until the funeral. She'd been too wrapped up in her grief and her guilt. She'd loved her grandmother and had spent so much of her childhood in Silverton Bay with her, but she hadn't been back to the village much over the last few years. She'd known Vivien was getting older, known she wasn't really coping with the upkeep of the house anymore. She should have visited more often. She should have spent more time with her grandmother, more than just the odd day here and there, taking her out for lunch or for a drive along the coast. Isobel had never wanted to stay in the house for very long when she visited. It had smelled musty, the beautiful garden had become overgrown, and Vivien was only living in the downstairs rooms. It was no longer the house Isobel had grown up in, and the sight of it slowly falling apart was too much of a reminder of her grandmother's age. So she'd avoided it completely by taking Vivien out instead. Vivien had loved to go out for a drive, to get away from the bay for a while. It had reminded her, she'd told Isobel once, of when she and her late husband Max had gone out in his open...